Game 3, as said, just got those ads short, and in the bottom left corner of the map, just lost game number 2. Now on his last life as well, it's the Dead Pixels Red Terran player FanTaSy.
In the top right as the orange Zerg, it's Armani.
Going for gas and pool early on a map of Orbital Shipyard. This is this is exciting, I guess I'll say, because I also don't think this is going to work.
Right? That's what I'm thinking too. I mean, he might just be hoping to, and we have seen this before, basically deny proxy reapers or mass reapers. Just be like, psych, I have a queen really early, and I have, link speed a lot earlier too. But what we saw when that was definitely the plan of, who was it? It was versus like a very obvious, like, Terran who would do a proxy rack. I forget what it was, but like the Reapers still did fine. So I don't even like this response if it was going to be Reapers.
There's not only that, but I feel this is a great move versus a Protoss because you pick off a pylon early on, critical damage. This maybe sneaks past the depots, but you're going to have enough SCVs to fight the Zerglings without Reaper or Marine support. That's the advantage of Legacy of the Void. You just have so much to work with.
It's just that's also Orbital Shipyard, So at the very least, you could try and get the command center to cancel. And you probably would, but on Orbital Shipyard, where the command center was first, by the way, and I see a little bit greedy, and would have been done, it's also just, tucked in the back behind a supply depot. So if Armani follows us up with a Baneling bus because he realizes, like, oh, the Reaper isn't here, you probably went for a CC first, I can get away with something tricky like that, then fine, like, all the more power to him. But if he's simply going to be like, oh, nuts, like, because they can't do anything with this, and tries to recover economically, I mean, look at this, FanTaSy goes for a third CC before factory, too. Like, his economy is going to be terrible.
As long as he gets that wall up. I mean, the only other thing is, like, maybe, just maybe there's going to be Lings lifted, but that's not even the case. There's no Overlords in position for this. In fact, this factory is part of the wall. It's an awkward wall, but it's a full wall, so hype? Now, I guess the argument can be made the faster pool at least gives faster queens, and I'm not going to argue with that. That means more larva, more potential creep spread. That's cool. It is the gas that leaves me with the biggest question mark on my head.
Yeah, I really wonder if he was just hoping to counter a Speedling build or a Reaper build. But yeah, like I said, even against Reaper builds, unless it's just the 1 or 2 Reapers, I mean, like 1 and then 2. But against like proxy Reapers, fastlings die.
Yeah, actually, it's Ravagers that are the answer to Reapers if you're ever struggling. Like, any Zerg players out there, 1 Ravager will seriously shut down a stupid amount of Reapers.
Yeah.
I sit here and I wonder, and I think, like, maybe we're thinking about this too much. Because, again, we're still learning a lot of Zerg timings because we've seen a lot of Terran versus Terran. But that gas, I leave question marks, but it doesn't seem to have hurt him too badly. Armani with his 3rd base on the way. It is weird to see a Terran player get his 3rd CC up first, but again, this hasn't killed Armani yet, so I'm not going to be too critical of it until we see him die.
If FanTaSy hadn't gone for such a quick 3rd CC, done like a Liberator push or something like that, I wouldn't be worried about it either. Especially if Armani had like perfect defense. But because FanTaSy got away with something so greedy and Armani gets away with something not so greedy, it is a little worrying, like in 3 minutes, what are their supplies going to look like? Man, what was that game? It was on Preon Terraces.
I remember vaguely what you're describing. I cannot.
Proxy Reaper. It ended up being like this really weird, like almost base trade scenario. I remember that much because it was like mass Reapers, just like a Baneling bus. Damn.
No, it's weird because I'm normally the guy who's able to finish this thought off, but I can't. I know exactly what game you're talking about, but I don't remember who was playing.
Damn. Because that was a really good, like, this is... There are so few times in Heart of the Swarm where we saw 2 racks versus a 10 pool. But the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, the 2 racks actually wins. And that was the case ever since I first saw it. So it's like the early pool loses against the proxy Reapers, but whatever. What did he scan? Scans the main.
Unfortunately, doesn't see anything. Lair was made of the natural. Spire on the way. I'm so not sold on Spire timings for TVZ right now. A lot of this just seems awkward and forced, and Mutalisks just don't have the same role they did in Heart of the Swarm. I'm more hyped about these double Evo Chambers coming up because I want to see upgrades more than I want to see Mutalisks.
I mean, they technically have the same role, but just not the same power. Like, to buy time, to harass a little bit, but they just never seem to do as strongly as their Heart of the Swarm. Not even counterparts, so the exact same mutas, but...
Well, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that when you consider what Legacy of the Void is on its base, more minerals for everybody, but the same amount of gas. So units that only cost minerals, like Marines, a lot more abundant. Missile turrets, more easily placed.
That's true.
Mutalisks still come out at the same rate, the same numbers because of the limitation through gas.
I feel like it's really that, we can hypothesize this all day long, and, Zerg players could actually probably tell us a little bit cleaner why this isn't working, or seeming to work as well as Heart of the Swarm, but I really think it's that midpoint where your larva isn't quite good enough with the reduced larva count, you need that macro hatchery a lot earlier, that you just get steamrolled by the Terran.
Maybe. Larva's not looking too bad right now for Armani, at least. Normally we do see that sort of desperation of, oh, I can't make any units.
Yeah.
But army supply's fairly low for both players.
That's why I would like watching True, because he seems to be experienced. Like, he seems to recognize this problem too. He's tried twice now, I think, to try and get some very early macro hatcheries. Getting a third base in his base, almost like Brood War. Maybe recognizing this potential problem, because every single time we see Ling Bling Muta, it doesn't seem to work out. Well, we'll see what Armani can do. It is Ling Bling Muta. He's getting the upgrades for the Lings, and well. I guess this isn't even that great of a sample because of the build orders. FanTaSy got to do with such greed, that third base goes down on location pretty quickly too. But even if Armani, had the best muted control in the world or whatever, he still would already be not in the greatest position.
Liberators, I remember when they were super broken and overpowered, and it's fine to watch them clean up so easily. We do have 2 full medevacs trying to get around the map, but unfortunately for FanTaSy here, there's plenty of overlords to see this coming. However, the Mutalisks, okay, they are going to diverge over and intercept this. Banshee going to go home. If the Mutalisks are distracted by the medevacs, so there's a chance those Hellions actually get into the natural base while this goes on, or even the third. Marines' combat shields actually time up perfectly for this, so stim, combat shields, everything here, but the Baneling's walking in slowly. He's got to kite away from this. Boost away with those medevacs. Oh no!
Oh, that one's gonna barely get away, but the Banelings are still on the heels. It actually goes down with half the Marines inside. But the drop spreads the Marines out at the very least, so
Hellions trying to clean this up.
More Banelings. Yeah, funny use of the Hellions, but they're chasing the Banelings or killing the Banelings, and some of them even survive, turn to Hellbats.
And with the reinforcements rallying here, the Mutalisks can't necessarily just walk all over this. There's a lot of Marines. So while that initial drop was kind of bad, they got caught, they got shut down, the reinforcements really saved the day here for FanTaSy. Now he's pushing in, and with so many Banelings haven't been taken out, there's actually not that many left.
Look at the money and the gas.
Yeah,
this
Armani,
seems to be a recurring problem.
Yeah, look at Unistab. He's got a larva to work with. And what larva he does have to work with is unfortunately just becoming Lings. Not exactly super effective units. Mutalisks coming up behind this. Queens get picked off on that miss rally. He's going to need everything to hold this together. Small mistakes like that are not going to cut it for Armani. And FanTaSy now with 150 in army supply. Good spread on these Marines. Takes down that fourth base. Still rallying forward. Not enough Banelings to shut this down. And Widow Mines even advancing forward here on the field. I don't know if he can hold his third.
I don't think so. This game is already looking over twice. Actually, more than twice the army supply of Armani. With the upgrades about to finish and Armani only starting his upgrade. It doesn't... And this is, again, I would say this isn't the perfect sample to be like, hey, there's a problem with the larva in this very specific timing. Because what we see occasionally is the Terrans don't control this correctly, and they do get pushed back, and then the larva actually, with their macro hatcheries, does work out. They get the ultras, and everything looks, fine and dandy.
Yeah, sure, we watch players like TLO fall apart in the mid-game, and like here in Armani, like, it looks bad, but at the same time, you watch players like True and others who'll take that earlier macro hatchery, that faster third, and they never suffer these problems. So there really is, there's got to be some perfect middle ground Zerg players can figure out. But FanTaSy is going to take this series and capitalize on it with a nice 2-1, advancing on to the brackets.